Hollywood, the land of dreams, where stars are made. But in 2014, for one of the world's largest film studios, it became the land of nightmares. That year, Sony Pictures fell victim to a devastating cyberattack that shook the entertainment industry to its very core. Hackers infiltrated the media colossus and stole 100 terabytes of data from Sony servers. The hackers then plastered this confidential information across the internet for the world to see. Tinseltown was consumed in the aftermath. Actors were smeared, film premieres canceled, studio heads forced to resign, millions of potential dollars lost, and a foreign state implicated? The supposed reason for all this drama? An outlandish comedy flick starring Seth Rogen and James Franco, where they try to assassinate Kim Jong-un. This could be a movie, don't you think? Hey everyone, I'm Sylvie and welcome to The Vault. Today we are looking into the hacking of Sony Pictures by a group who call themselves the Guardians of Peace, or GOP for short. The hack temporarily paralyzed the film studio and would cost well over $15 million to deal with the aftermath. On top of that, the FBI thinks the perpetrators are still out there and may have been behind plenty of other major cyber attacks in the years since. To truly understand the scope of the Sony hack, we have to break it down day by day. On the morning of November 24, 2014, just days before the offices of Sony Pictures would empty out for the Thanksgiving holiday, employees of the media giant are greeted by something sinister when they boot up their computers. Rather than their typical desktop displays, thousands of screens at the Sony offices in Los Angeles instead present a ghoulish red skeleton with an ominous message.
Hacked by GOP. We've already warned you, and this is just a beginning. We continue till our request be met. We've obtained all your internal data, including your secrets and top secrets. If you don't obey us, we'll release data shown below to the world. Determine what will you do till November the 24th, 11 p.m.
Listed beneath are 5 links. When clicked, these links open a massive directory containing hundreds of thousands of files stolen from the Sony Pictures servers. Within these files is priceless information regarding the inner workings of the studio. And what's surprising to learn is that Sony executives had evidence of a data breach 3 days prior. The week before, on Friday, November 21st, 2014, several high-ranking Sony Picture executives, including co-chair Amy Pascal and CEO Michael Linton, received an email from an account using the name Frank David.
Notice to Sony Pictures Entertainment Inc. We've got great damage by Sony Pictures. The compensation for it, monetary compensations we want. Pay the damage, or Sony Pictures will be bombarded as a whole. You know us very well. We never wait long. You'd better behave wisely. From the Apostles of God.
It has been reported that none of the executives saw these messages. The emails were apparently lost in their inboxes or went directly to spam. All was calm at Sony Pictures, and work let out for the weekend as normal. When Pascal, Linton, and Sony employees returned to work on Monday the 24th, the skeletons leap out of the closet. After booting up their devices and being greeted by the menacing Red Skull, all computers on the Sony network are instantly bricked, frozen, kaput. Executives quickly order Sony employees worldwide to shut down their systems in an attempt to contain the intrusion. Close to 8,000 computers are lost. 21 Twitter accounts registered to Sony Pictures are also compromised by the hackers, who strip the pages of their content. Messages from the GOP instead fill the pages. Some of the posts indicate that GOP stands for Guardians of Peace. Accompanying the posts are images featuring grotesquely photoshopped heads of Michael Linton and Amy Pascal. The next day, on November 25th, a spokeswoman for Sony Pictures emails Deadline.com a statement downplaying the severity of the incident, stating, "We are investigating an IT matter." November 26, 2014, the hackers send a new email to 4 senior members of Sony Pictures, including Pascal and Linton.
We will punish you completely. I am the Apostles of God, the boss of GOP. We began to release data because Sony Pictures refused our demand. Sony Pictures will come to know what's the cost of your decision. We will make Sony Pictures deleted on the list of the Hollywood's Big 6 majors. You are to collapse surely. Damn to cruel and reckless Sony Pictures. From the Apostles of God.
About an hour later, the GOP sends a second email to Sony personnel.
To pay the monetary compensation for the damage we got, and there was no answer. So we hacked to paralyze the network of Sony Pictures, warning of their releasing all of the data unless our demand met. All of the data will soon be released, including private data, and that they made a firm determination to collapse Sony Pictures. Damn to cruel and reckless Sony Pictures, the apostles of God.
And yet, it appears no action is taken by Sony Pictures at this time. November 27, 2014, the GOP dumps 5 unreleased Sony films onto file-sharing sites around the web. A week later, some of the films have been downloaded close to 1 million times. November 28, 2014. News reports claim via internal sources that Sony is looking into a link between North Korea, the hack, and the Sony Pictures film, The Interview. The film is a comedy starring Seth Rogen and James Franco, and the plot follows the duo as they try to assassinate North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un. This is the first time a potential motive and suspects are hypothesized. Months prior in June, North Korean representatives put out 2 official statements condemning the film. The first in an interview with the UK Daily Telegraph, claiming the film shows the desperation of the US government and American society. The second complaint came through the United Nations, and the letter stated that The Interview should be regarded as the most undisguised sponsoring of terrorism as well as an act of war, and that United States authorities should take immediate and appropriate action to ban the production and distribution of the aforementioned film. Otherwise, it will be fully responsible for encouraging and sponsoring terrorism. December 1st, 2014. The GOP releases the salaries of 17 Sony executives and 6,000 other employees onto the file-sharing site Pastebin. The media has a field day, reporting extensively on the grandiose salaries of the media conglomerate head honchos. The FBI opens its official investigation into the Sony hack and finds the official site of the GOP, which is a Facebook group. The next day, Amy Pascal and Michael Linton release a company-wide memo claiming they're working with the FBI to get to the bottom of the hack. The paychecks of Seth Rogen and James Franco for The Interview are also leaked online. And if you can't guess already, it's a lot. December 3rd, 2014, while sifting through one of the data dumps, journalists at Gawker find a treasure trove of employee complaints about Sony Pictures. Many of the disgruntled employees slam the company, the films they produce, and the actors they employ. Personal information about Sylvester Stallone, Judd Apatow, and about 47,000 Sony employees is now circulating on torrent sites all over the internet. The leaked information includes addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, health and credit records, and much, much more. December 5th, 2014, a 4th email from the GOP arrives in the inboxes of Sony Picture employees.
I am the head of GOP who made you worry. Removing Sony Pictures on Earth is a very tiny work for our group, which is a worldwide organization. And what we have done so far is only a small part of our further plan. Many things beyond imagination will happen at many places of the world. Our agents find themselves act in necessary places. Please sign your name to object the falls of the company at the email address below if you don't want to suffer damage. If you don't, not only you but your family will be in danger. If you want to prevent us, make your company behave wisely.
At the same time, a new data dump is released onto multiple file-sharing sites. December 7th, 2014, North Korea's National Defense Commission releases a statement denying any involvement in the hack, but commend the hackers for their efforts. The hacking into the Sony Pictures might be a righteous deed of the supporters and sympathizers with the DPRK in response to its appeal. The righteous reaction will get stronger to smash the evil doings. December 8th, 2014, a new message from the GOP arrives on GitHub. The message is directed at Sony and makes demands about their movie of terrorism.
Gift of GOP for 4th day, their privacy. By GOP. We are the GOP working all over the world. Message to Sony: we have already given our clear demand to the management team of Sony, however, they have refused to accept. Stop immediately showing the movie of terrorism which could break the regional peace and cause the war. You, Sony and FBI, cannot find us. We are perfect as much. The destiny of Sony is totally up to the wise reaction and measure of Sony. Their privacy.
The post also lists a password and 20 different links to more stolen Sony data. That day, Sony Pictures CEO Michael Linton releases a new internal memo to try and quell worries from the Sony employees. And that night, the hackers dump a list of aliases used by various celebrities onto the web. December 9th, 10th, and 11th, the hackers released the full email inboxes of Amy Pascal and Steve Moscow online. The inboxes contain multiple gigabytes of email exchanges related to business and personal matters. The most recent set of emails are from November 22nd, 2 days before the outright hack occurred. The press goes absolutely bonkers with the leaked email inboxes. Unscrupulous exchanges between Amy Pascal and high-powered movie producer Scott Rudin are unearthed and published pretty much everywhere imaginable. In the emails, the Sony executives slam actors, threaten each other, and say racist remarks about then-President Obama. The next day, Amy Pascal and Scott Rudin make public apologies for their unsavory remarks, and the interview has its Los Angeles premiere among tight security detail. December 13th and 14th, the hackers release a 7th data dump onto Pastebin. Nothing overly salacious this time, but a message is attached.
We are preparing for you a Christmas gift. The gift will be larger quantities of data, and it will be more interesting. The gift will surely give you much more pleasure and put Sony Pictures into the worst state.
The next day, the press publish an early draft of the James Bond film Spectre, which they find in a previous data dump. December 16th, 2014, the so-called Guardians of Peace post a new message to Pastebin. This is the first time the hacker group explicitly mentions the interview. The message threatens retaliation on theaters, which plan on screening the film and moviegoers who plan to attend.
By GOP notice, we have already promised a Christmas gift to you. Warning, we will clearly show it to you at the very time and places the interview be shown, including the premiere. How bitter fate those who seek fun in terror should be doomed to. The world will be full of fear. Remember the 11th of September 2001, whatever comes in the coming days is called by the greed of Sony Pictures Entertainment. All the world will denounce the Sony.
In light of these threats, Sony pulls the interview from theaters and cancels the film's Christmas Day release. They also begin to remove billboard advertising across the country and suspend all TV promotion for the film.
He's a fan! Look at him! If that ain't a real story, what is?
Okay, let's do it.
We're going to North Korea!
Bro, I heard her parents were diplomats.
December 19th, 2014. The GOP reportedly contacts Sony Pictures via email. They state that pulling the interview was very wise. The email mentions that the leaks will stop if Sony meets the rest of their demands.
No, we want you never let the movie released, distributed or leaked in any form of, for instance, DVD or piracy. And we want everything related to the movie, including its trailers, as well as its full version down from any website hosting them immediately.
The FBI releases a statement officially tying the hack to North Korea. December 21st, 2014. North Korea claims that the Obama administration was heavily involved in the production of the interview. They state that the film's plot was clear evidence of U.S. government involvement. In the statement, North Korea threatens retaliation if the film is ever released. The next day, North Korea's internet goes out for over 10 hours. Many news organizations report they suspect the U.S. is behind the outages. December 23rd and 24th, Sony Pictures releases a statement via the press claiming the interview will show in some theaters on Christmas Day, and reveal seetheinterview.com, where the film can be purchased via digital platforms. December 25th, 2014. The film is released online and in about 200 theaters in the US. Nothing happens on part of the GOP or North Korea. The interview goes on to net $18 million through digital downloads. 2 months later, in February of 2015, Amy Pascal is forced to step down from her role as co-chair of Sony Pictures. She cites the cyberattack as the main reason for her departure. That month, Sony disclosed they set aside $15 million to deal with fallout from the cyberattack and revamp their computer systems. Okay, so how exactly did the Sony hack occur? And what real evidence is there to implicate North Korea? Well, lucky for us, their digital fingerprints are all over this one. In 2018, following a 4-year investigation, the FBI released a 200-page affidavit, which paints a picture of the hackers' methodology and their ties to North Korea. While the outright hack of Sony Pictures happened in November, Evidence suggests that infiltration took place a few months prior in September of that year. Spear phishing is a common tactic where hackers send fraudulent messages to victims in an attempt to make them follow a link or download a file. Spear phishing messages are targeted and designed to look legitimate. The hackers needed access to the Sony servers, and the FBI point to phishing emails aimed at executives and employees as the gateway. In September of 2014, Sony was receiving a lot of phishing emails from a multitude of different accounts. While the messages themselves took different forms, many of the accounts which sent the emails were registered under a common alias, Kim Hyun-woo. These accounts were also often accessed via the same group of IP addresses. One of these fraudulent emails managed to dupe a Sony employee, and that simple mistake enabled the GOP to wiggle their way into the Sony network. Extraction begins the moment a victim clicks a link found within the phishing message. Because more often than not, when opened, these links contain a dangerous piece of software known as malware. Malware is a malicious computer software that causes a victim computer to behave in a manner inconsistent with the intention of the owner or user of the victim computer. In the case of the Sony hack, a rare type of malware was used known as wiper malware. Wiper malware is used to infiltrate a network, download all data stored on that network, and discreetly send that stolen data to an email address hard-coded into the software. Once that process is complete, the malware is set to wipe itself and everything off of the infected network. This is what happened to Sony. But when the FBI digital forensics team analyzed the malware used in the attack, more traces of the perpetrators were found. Some of the email accounts coded into the malware were registered to the familiar alias Kim Hyun-woo and were accessed via the same IP addresses that appeared in September 2014. These IP addresses are the true smoking gun because, as it turns out, they are all assigned to a company located in North Korea. Though the FBI has identified strong connections to North Korea in the Sony hack, they have only been able to identify one of the potential actors, Park Jin-hyuk. Park is a North Korean citizen and works as a programmer for a company named Chosun Expo. On the surface, the company runs a legitimate North Korean lottery and e-commerce website. Beneath that, the FBI calls Chosun Expo a front company for the North Korean government, which generates currency for a hacking organization known as Lab 110. The theory is that the GOP are actually employees of Chosun Expo, who work as agents of Lab 110. The FBI also ties Lab 110 to a number of other major cyber attacks spanning from 2009 to 2017. Park began working for Chosun Expo in 2002 and has created multiple email accounts to carry out his duties. In their investigation, the FBI discovered some pretty clear connections between Park's work accounts and the accounts used in the Sony hack. The FBI found that Park's work email frequently had correspondence with the email accounts registered to Kim Woo. And Park regularly accessed his work email via the same North Korean IP addresses as those which appeared during the Sony hack. The FBI suggests that Park was using his work accounts to test phishing emails and the wiper malware as he developed it. But because of the gigantic scope of the attack, he could not have acted alone. The FBI states that there is a large number of other unnamed co-conspirators currently under investigation, who have similar ties to North Korea and Chosun Expo. The co-conspirators in Park supposedly worked in tandem on the creation of the wiper malware and distribution of the phishing emails that would shake Sony in 2014. The Sony hack ushered in a new era of understanding cybercrime. Never before had a commercial entity fallen victim to an attack of this scale, and the unprecedented media coverage caused industries all over the world to look inward and reevaluate how they secure their data. In 2017, a coalition of private web security companies published a report which they named Operation Blockbuster. The report is incredibly detailed and outlines similar evidence as presented by the FBI, but they never directly implicate North Korea in the attack. Instead of trying to name potential suspects, Operation Blockbuster focuses on understanding the methods employed by the hackers and works on developing strategies for preventing similar attacks in the future. Both Operation Blockbuster and the FBI affidavit are free to download online and worth checking out if you have an interest in the greater nuances and details of this crime, and others carried out by GOP. And after all these years, the threads of the Sony hack may seem closer than ever to being untangled. But the reality is, the individuals behind this wild cyber heist are still out there. And who knows what they'll cook up next.
You know what's more destructive than a nuclear bomb?
Words. Yeah, tell me about it.
Jordan!
Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you have any other interesting stories you'd love to see us cover on The Vault, just let us know in the comments below. And be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and we'll see you next time.